Happy Wednesday. I am Danny Benson, host of I'm Proud of You, Sis. And sometimes bros, when bros come in here, because I'm proud of bros too. But I am so happy that you're here joining me today. It is, I don't know, the second day of summer. I am a June baby. I just celebrated my birthday with all of my amazing family members and close and loving, endearing friends. So I look like I'm glowing, everybody, because I felt so loved for the month of June. It's so insane. But anyway, I am here today to say happy summer. I'm looking forward to the 4th of July coming up soon. My babies have a couple more days left of school, so they are so anxious to just be done with it. And me too, because I need a break from homework and schoolwork and all this other stuff going on. But today we are going to talk about a serious topic today, which is domestic violence. I know so many people and heard so many stories of situations that they've been in with that involves domestic violence with their partner or a significant other. And I have Judy Foster here. She's a social, she's a licensed clinical social worker who is going to dive into domestic violence. I am not an expert, so I wanted somebody to come in and talk about facts versus opinions because we all have different opinions about domestic violence. I really feel like it's not really, we should all be in one accord, but I wanted to have the professional here to talk about it. So here's Judy.
Hey, and happy birthday. It's okay. You're excited.
I got a little dust ball in my throat, like right here.
Oh, I hate
But
that.
hey, Judy, how are you? So let's dive
I'm
into domestic
good.
violence. While I go get some water, okay?
Okay. Go ahead. I'll take over. Well, I'm also a domestic violence coordinator at my job. So I offer a lot of resources to people if they call in and they are in a domestic violence situation and they need some resources. So I just wanted to start by giving you guys a definition of domestic violence, which is any form of maltreatment that takes place in a relationship between adults or adolescents. And it is a major public health problem all across the world, much less the United States, because according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men, I believe, will be victims of domestic violence in their lifetime in the United States. So that equates to 2 million women and 800,000 men. I always double the numbers because, like rape, domestic violence is an underreported phenomenon. So this is something that a lot of people are not going to report, whether it's because of shame, fear, or whatever else. Just like rape, they are not going to be reported. So whenever you see numbers like 1 in 4, I always say it's 2 in 4. It's half. Um, and to look back at the history of violence, again, in the world, not just the United States, we have to look at the mistreatment of women and really where it started. Rape and other forms of sexual exploitation have always been used to demoralize women. And in a lot of cultures, oppression of women has been seen in forms of, I think, female circumcision to little girls across in other countries, women's inability to vote at one time, the notion that women should take subservient roles in the household. And I think we've seen in other countries, these honor killings that happen to women if they try to get educated, if they have premarital sex, things that men do, that if women try to do in some of these countries, they could be killed for. So just saying that is leading you to see how societies view women as less valuable than men and encourages the mistreatment of women.
Even like the show, like The Handmaid's Tales. I don't know if you ever seen it
Yep.
before.
Yep.
So shocking to me that
Yeah.
this was actually like happening to women, and it's probably in some way, shape, or form still happening to women.
Yeah, a lot of people see this show like this is actually happening now, like with the overturn of Roe versus Wade and things like that. And him is still
Well,
is real.
it's so funny that you're talking about that because I think the ruling is going to come, I guess, within a week because they go on vacation on June 30th. So
Right.
everyone brace for themselves. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
But
we don't want to go backwards. I mean, everybody has their own different opinion and political affiliation and whatnot, but really we're looking at women's rights. That's what it comes down to. So I'm glad you
yes,
brought that up. The
yes,
handling.
because I think sometimes women are seen as objects
Yes.
versus actual human beings with feelings and we can make we have our own minds, we can make our own choices and honestly like I feel like this is my body and I can do what is right for me. And not to like just for 2 seconds, not talk about, domestic violence for two
Hmm.
seconds. I just want people to understand that pro choice doesn't mean that you're for abortion. Like people need to stay clear from that. Like it doesn't mean that. It means that I as a woman can make a decision for myself what I want to do with
Right.
the body that I have. That's all it means. So if you're against abortion, that's pro choice. If you're for
Hmm.
abortion, that's pro choice. So every time I hear the pro choice thing and people make it seem like then you're for abortion, no, I'm just saying that I'm for your individual rights as a person.
Right. No, I get it. I'm glad you brought that up because it really, the bottom line is it's men making decisions about women's bodies. And that just kind of goes into what I'm saying about how women are valued as less, as less than men, which is encourages the mistreatment of women. So, and I know that I gave the statistic about there's 1 in 9 men that are abused actually, but for today's purposes, I think we'll probably just be talking about women as the victims of domestic violence, even though it does happen to men as well. Um, so I was going to talk about some risk factors really about this because it really is a mindset that gives men power over women and that puts us at risk for becoming involved in abusive relationships. So it does happen and it can happen to anybody of any race, religion, creed, culture, sexual orientation, economic status, everything. Um, but the main risk factors that can put somebody in a domestic violence situation is poverty, lack of education, witnessing family violence as a child, which I think is the main thing because the research shows that people who grow up in a household with domestic violence or alcoholism are more likely to become the perpetrator or the victim in the domestic violence situation.
And then I could see that because you're watching your parent do it. You're so young, you don't understand why, but you think you're a sponge, so you think like this is normal.
Right. It's the
And
way
a
of life.
lot of people, yeah, and sometimes it happens like subconsciously. I feel
Yes.
like you know what I mean. Like the kid might look at it and normalize it and say, "I will never do this." But I hear
Exactly.
a lot of people say they would never do this, and they end up being or becoming just like the parent that they said they would never be.
Yeah, isn't that weird how we take on traits of our parents, even the bad parts? We see these movies where the mother's getting hit, and the child is trying to help because they know it's wrong and they don't want it to happen. And then that child, if it's a boy, let's say, could grow up being an abuser because you take on traits of your parents. So,
You want to know something that's fascinating? I was reading something in the New York Times the other day. Do you know they're finding out that traits of your parents is passed on to your embryo, which is
oh,
fascinating.
okay, yeah,
So if you're like stressed out, depressed when you were pregnant or something like
right,
that, they say for some reason that stress or that characteristics sometimes
right,
gets passed along to the child, which is so amazing to me.
in
I guess
utero.
that's
Hmm.
in the uterine, and I guess that has to do with like evolution. You notice how the kids are getting taller and taller and taller. I think that DNA just is it's such a smart it's so smart that
Yeah,
it
you're
picks
right.
up environment
You're right.
because I watch these kids and I'm like, wow, you know what
Right,
I mean?
right. And it also like how people play music to people when they're pregnant, like to your child in utero, they play music, they'll sing, they'll say things. So that stuff is sinking in. We have to believe that.
So that's how I feel like domestic violence sinks in too when a
Yeah,
child sees that because I don't think a child is born wanting. to hopefully not hurt another human being. I think they watch it.
Yes, it's learned behavior, like a lot of other things, like racism,
Yes.
all types of different things. But you're right, absolutely. And alcoholism in the family, I should say, because people drink alcohol all the time. They're not abusers, but when it becomes a point of a problem, or you're abusing, you're just more likely maybe to be in a situation where violence can occur. We lose our inhibitions when we're drinking a lot. So, and also it can, now it doesn't mean that it's just poor people with no education who drink are going to be victims or perpetrators. It happens to people with status and money as well, as we see the media reporting the celebrities being victims of domestic violence. It really just goes to show you it can happen to anybody, even if you have a lot of money and you look like you have the perfect life and people want your life and want to be you. They going through the same things that the ordinary person is going through.
Yes, and I have the saying, all the glitters is not gold.
That's it.
What you see, especially on social media,
Yep.
doesn't mean that is the person's characteristic behind the scenes.
Exactly.
I think more than ever now, a lot of people are, I don't know what it is, more narcissistic.
Right.
More than ever. I don't know if it's because of social media is making them more narcissistic,
Probably.
but yeah. So I always tell people like all that glitters is not gold. Whatever you see that's shining bright and glittering, most times, might not look as perfect behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that, because it breaks my heart when people do go through domestic violence and don't say anything because maybe they're scared or they feel like they're not believed.
Right.
And then when they have the courage to leave, they do want to say something, and all of a sudden someone goes, well, they didn't look like something was happening to them. They looked perfectly fine when I was watching their social media. What
Right.
people post on social media doesn't mean that they're perfectly fine. It's just something to just to post. It doesn't dictate what the person's
Right.
actually going through.
Yeah, you're right. That's what social
You
media does
know,
to people. Makes you feel like you have to put out a certain, persona for the
yeah.
friends and things like that. So, right, people are hiding their problems, which, you know, we're not all going to put our problems on Front Street, but you're right. People looking at something might assume other things, and that may not necessarily be what's happening.
Yeah, and then when it comes to domestic violence, sometimes it's hard to call the police depending on the situation that you're in. Sometimes you confuse the hitting with love.
Yes.
I hear a lot of, I heard, like, my cousin was here, a couple of days ago, and she says this is a generation of toxic. Like, they feel like, in high school, like, if your relationship is toxic, it's a great relationship. It goes viral, versus if you
Right.
have this Russell Wilson and Ciara relationship, which is perceived as corny. You know what I mean? Because, like,
Right.
I guess because you're not getting beat up or you're not in a
Right.
toxic relationship, everyone frowns on it. Like, okay, this can't be real. This is not
Right.
what society is. And she says, like, she has girls in high school that get beat up on, and they
Hmm.
say the more they get beat up, the more they feel like the guy loves
Yeah,
them.
they equate that with he loves me, he cares about me. So he's showing it in this way. And
and
that's
and
not.
it breaks my heart, because
Hmm.
I thought that we were educating the next generation enough to understand that when a man hits you, doesn't
Right.
it doesn't equate to he loves you.
Right.
There's nothing positive about
Right.
a man or a woman putting their hands on each
Right.
other. So to hear that toxic is the new, like the new popular
Right.
thing, I feel like we're going backwards instead of us going forward.
Hmm. And what you said about not being believed, sometimes like think about if a man has a high status position. What if he's a cop? Or what if he's somebody like, and then you call the police and then his buddies come to the house? Or women may not believe because of some of the other person might be in a higher status than them. So, and then but just may not even call the police because of that. So
Well,
it's a really
yeah,
good
because
point.
when a guy is in the highest status, people who don't know that person behind the scenes go, they would never do that. I don't
Exactly.
believe you. They would never do anything like that. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
this guy is like the pillar of our community. You know what I mean?
Right.
He volunteers his time
Right.
24/7. But one thing about people who abuse, the way they are seen in the community is not the way that they are behind closed doors.
Right. They hide it
People need
very
to
well.
Yeah, and people need to understand like there's a mask that falls off when we
Right.
come back home.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah. And abusers also have been known to harm women in places that you won't see bruises, so that they'll hit them in their legs, or there are places that are covered up. So you may not see or believe that a woman is being abused because they mask it very well. Or the abuser is doing, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, like they're smart about it now. Like
Yes.
I feel like with social media and with all the information is out, people are reading stuff. It's just like crazy people. Like my parents used to hitchhike back in the day, and I'm like, how did you hitchhike? They
Right.
used to tell me, well, crazy looks crazy, so we just knew when the person stopped. We were like, oh, not this one. Oh, this one, right? But I always
Right.
tell my kids now, crazy don't look crazy no more. Crazy looks normal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because they're reading the information so they know how to act and what to do and what not to do. And
Yeah.
that comes with also a person who's an abuser.
That's
They
it.
know
That's
what to
exactly
do,
it.
what to not do. They know how to
Yep.
act, not to how to not act. They
Yep.
give you secrets of, like you said, where you hit the person so the person doesn't see, or it doesn't cause bruises.
Exactly.
The information is out there. So because you don't see the physical violence on the person, I tell people all the time, believe the person,
Right. Right.
because I don't think people make jokes about being abused.
Right. And it's not just physical violence, there's emotional, psychological, sexual, financial. And a colleague and I were actually just talking today about how people can use spirituality, in the church as a form of abuse, because a man could say, use a woman's faith to keep her marginalized. Like, I'm ahead of, I don't know the Bible like some people, but just that the man is the head of the household, that women should be subservient, that your Christianity could be in jeopardy if you don't do what I say, or there's a lot of spouse rape going on that a lot of people don't believe in. I don't know if I ever told you that I did a paper in college once on wife rape, and my professor gave me an F because he said that does not exist. And
What?
from a country he was from Africa, and he didn't believe in it. And he said this does not exist. And he wrote a big F across my paper, like to really drive it home that how dare you even say that this is something that could happen.
You know what's so funny about that? I think that goes along with the a man thinks like your body is actually their possession,
Yes.
where you can't say like so they can hit you.
Right.
They can when they're ready to go to if they want to sleep with you, you can't say no to them because and if
Exactly.
you do say no to them, it's like your body belongs to me. What do you mean? What
That's
do you
it.
mean you're saying no?
Right.
You're going to have intercourse with me, whether you like it or not.
Right. Right. It doesn't mean that everybody from a specific place believes that, but this is just something that happened to me. And I was like, wow. And I was really young at the time. So I was just like, wow. I mean, I can't believe that he did that. I didn't even say anything about it, but it just goes to show you that there are a lot of people that just don't believe in it and just look at women as second class citizens. And you should just do what you are told and what I say. And that's that.
And that's why I think that when you do suffer domestic violence, especially when it because men get abused too. I feel like men don't report it as much because it's like
Right.
how I'm going to report
It's
a woman
embarrassing.
hitting on me.
That's right.
Like I'm 6'3", and this girl is this. It looks I look crazy going to
Right.
put a police report as saying like, oh, this woman abused me because people will look at me like, how you gonna let a woman abuse you?
Yeah.
Like she's like half your size or half your weight or she's
Right.
not as strong. But
Right.
men do get abused too,
Right. And they feel
you
emasculated if
know?
they say something.
Yeah, so they don't say nothing at all. So I think like the men statistic is I personally feel like it's probably under
Oh yeah.
reported. Um but with that said, this is what I mean with the pro choice. Even when I'm married to you, you're taking away my choice if I want to
Right.
sleep with you or not.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
it's because we're married. You're the husband,
Right.
so this is my body. So whenever I want to lay down with you, you're gonna say yes. And
Right.
if you don't say yes, they don't consider it rape because it's my body. It
Exactly.
belongs to
That's
the
right.
man.
That's right.
So you actually should have got an A for that paper because I really think that there is such a thing as wife rape. I mean,
Mhm.
I know you're married, and I guess we know each other, but
Right.
that goes along with the abuse too because if there is wife rape, that's also I think part of the cycle of the abuse that you're talking about, domestic
Right.
abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse,
Yes.
mental abuse. because if a man thinks like this body belongs to them,
Right.
I can't just imagine how they're treating that woman in that household.
Right. And let's not even, COVID-19 brought in a whole new thing because the numbers went up, increasing domestic violence because, before COVID, we had outlets, we had school, work, church, we could go out and do things. Then COVID hit, everybody's quarantining. There's a lot of stress going on. People are drinking more. The alcohol sales went up. I think we talked about that before. Just being, inside the house. If you're already with an abuser, that doesn't help matters. And if you're already on the brink of being on an abusive relationship, that's going to drive you over the edge maybe because there's a lot going on and people didn't know what was going on with their own lives. People were dying and were trapped in the house and
So
we
it's high anxiety. High
yes.
anxiety, and people are going from 0 to 100
Yeah.
real quickly because I'm
Yeah.
here trapped. This is not planned. One day we were open, next day we weren't.
Right.
Now this person I've probably been avoiding not to get abused. Now I'm stuck with the person in the house because they scared the crap out of you and you couldn't leave the house. So you was like, okay, can't leave. Gotta stay here. I think so many people were being abused
Mm-hmm.
in their homes. It just broke my heart to
Yeah.
just be trapped in that
There's a lot
house.
of stress and like homeschooling kids with like that in and of itself will maybe drive you over the edge, but it just
People
was
were
another
losing their
stress.
jobs. Think about that
Yes.
because now you're
Oh yeah.
shutting down. Now, your employer might say, we don't need you because we don't know how long you're going to be shut down
Right.
for. If he's like the head of the household, he's a provider. Now you dwindle yourself to unemployment, which is
Right.
probably like maybe could be half of your salary, even a quarter of your salary.
Exactly.
I'm not making an excuse for domestic violence, but that is probably like some of the things that's happening in the
Yeah.
home, which would make the stress level even higher,
Exactly. Exactly.
which would cause an abuser to, abuse.
Right. I'm going to touch on LGBTQ plus real quick because there's
Yes,
a community that I think a lot of people feel like they don't maybe suffer from domestic violence as much because when you think about two men in a relationship, you don't really think about one man beating another man or his partner or his husband, but it does happen,
it
and
does.
a lot of people aren't aware of that or they just don't believe it.
I mean, are they actually reporting it?
I think that someone told me the numbers are actually even higher for the LGBTQ plus community with domestic violence. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe it because they have a lot more stressors to deal with um, in society and just in general. And so people just need to know that it happens again to everybody. Everybody.
So, okay, so do we know statistic? Is it more if it's a couple that is, that is, well, I don't even know how to say the couple. Is it like two men versus two women? Is it more prevalent in the relationship when it's like two women versus if it's two
Yeah,
men? And I
that
can't really say
I
that
don't
because
know. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, because I can't really say two men, two women because with the dynamics of the LGBTQ community,
Right,
you know, within that community, each person has their role, or which each person, has what they consider them to be. So
right,
I
right.
don't
I
want
know
to
what you mean.
blanket.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to blanket, two men because two men could be one is a man, one is a woman.
Right.
So maybe that's why it could be underreported too because we are now having boxes where they are included now. So the boxes used to be men,
Right.
women,
Right.
men, female, male. That was the two boxes.
Right.
So police report might just say male. Police report
Right.
might check off female.
Exactly. Exactly. So I know this is so much to talk about. We're in so little time, but
No,
cycle of
but
violence.
you could keep no, you could keep talking
Okay.
past the
Um,
time because I want the audience to know all the information from you, from a licensed professional. So if they need help to get out of a domestic violence situation,
mhm, mhm.
they can come to the show because we want to help our viewers out there who are watching right now. And I'm proud of you, sis. And also I'm proud of you, bro, because there's men that are watching too. Um, just about domestic violence and what can be done, how can it be prevented, where to go out and get
Right.
help. and also include the children in our conversation too, like the kids who are watching the domestic violence too, because that could be domestic violence could be like a parent hitting a child too. It doesn't only have to be like relationships,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So, cycle of violence, tension building phase, walking on eggshells, hoping to not make that person mad for whatever reason. That doesn't work because if they're going to be mad and hit you, they're going to hit you. The explosive stage, which is the actual act of violence, and then the honeymoon stage, which is, the showering you with gifts. I'm sorry, it'll never
The
happen again.
love bombing. We're gonna
Love
love you,
bombing.
bomb
And
you to
it's
death.
called the cycle of violence because it is a cycle. It keeps happening. It will happen again. I think a lot of times we kind of have a hope, a fantasy that it won't happen again because you love this person, but it will happen again. Unless that person
Especially,
goes into counseling or something like that.
you know what's so crazy? It's like you have that hope because that person goes, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to," and
Right.
because you love this person so much, and because you're like, people are humans and people make mistakes. You want to hope and pray like this is going to be the last time, and you always find out that it's never the last time.
Nope. 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 We need to, like, even just how you talked about prevention. We just need to keep building up women's self-esteem and increasing social support for women. Um, there's a lot of resources out there that we can go over at the end, but just, people don't leave sometimes because they have kids, they are financially limited, and abusers do this on purpose. Sometimes they will keep you isolated. They will make sure you don't have a job so you don't have money to go and do something that you want to do. It's all about control. And by doing this, they keep somebody feeling like they can't succeed by themselves. People don't want to go to shelters. Women may not want to bring their kids to shelters. It's really hard to leave. A lot of people are like, well, why don't they just leave? It's not always that even simple, especially when the heightened violence is when a woman is ready to leave, or gives an order of protection or something like that. Because then the man feels like, oh, I'm losing control, or I should just say the abuser is feel like they're losing control, and they might actually become violent at that time. So it's a heightened violence when a woman, or when an abuser knows that the person is about to leave. So that's another reason why people don't leave, because they're afraid. They're scared. Your
So,
safety is
so
in
as
danger.
as a licensed professional, do you feel that you should let the abuser know you're leaving? Or should you just be very like very secretive and plan your like it's like survival. You have to get in survival
Yeah,
mode and not tell the abuser, and you just plan. You know, um, the JLo movie. What was that? Sleeping
yeah,
with the Enemy. Oh my
yeah.
god, love that movie.
Enough. That was the movie.
Oh, it was enough. Yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
enough. She didn't have a movie called Sleeping with the Enemy. Okay. Maybe,
I
but
think that, yeah,
Enough
that
is
was,
such a great.
yeah.
Enough is such a great
Yeah, I like
movie.
stuff like that. But yeah, you're right, because most of the time women have to secretly leave. Because if you tell your abuser you're leaving, they're not going to let you, or
And
they might
sometimes they
beat you
might
so
kill. They
bad.
might kill you.
Yeah, exactly, or they will kill you, or they'll beat you so bad that you can't, especially kill you. That's why some people just skate out in the middle of the night, or when the person's at work or something like that.
Because it's like I feel like it's like a crime of passion. So what happens is if the abuser thinks you're leaving them, they secretly I feel like they're insecure or something like that. They don't want you with
Yes,
anybody else, so they
yes,
rather just harm you to the point where you don't sometimes live, instead of them having that thought of being without you.
right.
So why is that? Why is it psychological? Like if I'm beating up on somebody, why wouldn't I want them to leave? Because obviously I don't like the human that I'm putting my hands on constantly.
Right.
So why wouldn't I want them to leave? Like why would I be upset if they left? I know you say it's control, but
Yeah.
but but wouldn't you expect the person to leave?
Well, they don't see that. They don't see it in the moment. And that's why abusers need counseling, and not just one or two times. They need to be in deep psychotherapy, and they need to be on ongoing mandated treatment if possible. Because if you don't go to treatment, then you go to jail, type of thing. How else are we going to, sometimes we have to make people get treatment. I hate to say it, but it depends.
Yeah,
But
because I think that you might be a danger to society, because if you are potentially putting your hands on someone behind closed doors, I can't just imagine if something happens outside and you snap.
Right.
So you definitely should. And okay, so even with seeking someone like you, why is it hard to get the abuser to go get therapy?
So, and we talked about this the last time about sometimes people, different communities, cultures, they don't believe in asking for help. It is perceived as a sign of weakness. We don't air our dirty laundry. There's just so many reasons why people don't go for help. And then it's also admitting that I have a problem, which a lot of people don't want to say. They don't want to say it. And also the church. Remember, we talked about just pray on it. And there's just a lot of beliefs that people think that they could just handle their own issues and they don't need help, or they don't want help, or they're shameful to get help. And so that's why we had that show about how therapy is good for everybody. And it's not perceived, it's actually a sign of strength to say that you need help so you can better yourself and invest in yourself. I think it's great.
That's
So,
why that's why I am a advocate of I have a book coming out called Dr. Feelings, and me and Judy talk about this all the time. And I feel that if you instill this in your child early on in life, meaning that those stages when they become sponges, when we start setting the routine for the child, like brush your teeth twice a day, go get your eyes checked once a year, like when we're setting these routines, because kids love routine, right? So if you give them something and you constantly are doing it, then they say, "Oh, this is great. This is what I'm supposed to do." Because it's not like they
right,
work or anything like that. They only have to go to school, so routine is
right,
like fun
right,
to them, right? So I tell my audience, wouldn't it be cool to make it routine to get mental health checkups for your children
right.
at the earliest age possible?
I agree.
Even if nothing is wrong with them, show your kids that this is part of the routine of, just like we physically take care of ourselves, this brain is an organ too. It needs to be checked up too, because sometimes everyone thinks like you're just born smart and you just feed it
Right,
information and it's functional,
right,
but it also has balancing issues, hormonal balancing issues. It also has, like what the New York Times says, sometimes you get a little part of your genetic disposition from your parents.
yes.
you know it's
Mm-hmm.
like a generational thing. Also, so me and Judy believe, just like for the people who don't want to go to say I'm an abuser, just imagine if that child regularly went to mental health checkup person. I'm calling the book Dr. Feelings, but
Love
to
it.
check on your feelings,
Mm-hmm.
then the kid won't have a problem if something is wrong with them to go to someone like you and speak about the issues, because as parents we've made it something at a very young age to do, not only check yourself physically, but we got to do checkup on your brain, because
Right.
it is an organ, just like your heart is an
That's
organ. You got
right.
to check your
That's
heart.
right.
Your lungs is an organ. You got to check your heart. Your eyes is an organ. You got to check
Right.
your eyes. Your brain is an organ. And I
That's
think that we
it.
don't stress this enough about,
Yeah. Yeah,
let's make
exactly.
this a routine thing.
Yeah.
We go to dentists, we go to eye check. I'm doing all these things for my kids physically, but why aren't we mandating our kids at an early age going for a mental health checkup
We should.
routinely, once a year, twice a year, just to ask simple questions, just to make sure the kid is okay mentally? You
Exactly.
know
I
what I
agree.
mean? Because remember what we just talked about? All that glitters is not gold.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
I look fine doesn't mean I'm actually fine.
Right. That's right.
I could put the lipstick on, the makeup on, do the hair. You know what I mean? I could do all that stuff, but it doesn't mean inside I'm mentally there.
That's
And you
right.
know what? Society needs to stop judging people by the way they look and actually like start listening to the signs that they give you,
Yeah,
like
without
the
the mental
verbal
and the
cues.
physical. So,
So, okay, so let's talk about this. Wouldn't it be smart as a parent, if you are suffering from domestic violence, that you automatically have your child go see a licensed professional like you?
yes, because we talked about how children internalize those things and you don't want them to end up being a victim or a perpetrator at some point. So, definitely.
Yes, because sometimes the child doesn't want to talk to me. If I'm being abused, the child's like, okay,
Right.
can't talk to mommy.
Right.
The child's definitely not gonna go talk to the person that's abuser.
Yeah.
because they're scared that that person might come and abuse them, or
Right.
maybe that person is abusing them.
But the parent has to
So,
have the insight and the wherewithal to do that and to follow through with it with their child. So,
and that's where it comes to be educated. This has to be done in school. I know every school has like a psychology, a psychologist,
yeah, school social
department,
workers,
a
yeah,
social worker, and I think every social worker or and every psychologist should know every kid in that school.
you should.
And if it's too much, if it's too overwhelming, maybe they should hire another one.
Yeah,
Because I really,
that's what it comes
I
down
know
to.
this,
Money.
I know money, I know, but you know what? I'm gonna tell Elon Musk this. Can we develop an app that tracks where each of our pennies go to, and every human on this earth can have it on their phone? So when I'm paying X amount of taxes, it lets me know where it's going to. So
Right.
I know that it's being spent wisely because we are a rich country.
You're right.
We are a rich country. For you to tell me that mental health is not as important with
Right.
all the other
And we
stuff that
find
we're
money for
doing.
other things. That's the thing, right? We find money for other things, but education is something that really falls at the wayside when it comes to things like that.
And I don't know why, because when people are educated, they make better decisions. I
Yes.
feel like there's less violence,
Yes.
there's less abuse going on, there's less stress. Education is the key to everything. Like they say, knowledge is power.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel like they want society not to be as smart because it's easy to deal with people who are not smart than people who are smart, because smart people will question things.
Right. Right.
So, okay, so with domestic violence, what can you do? What are the signs? Like
Um,
if I'm going on a date with someone or I'm married to someone, are there any signs that I can see early on to see if this person is actually
well,
an abuser?
you can see it by the control that people have. Now, remember, on a first date, you're going to get somebody's representative. You may not always see that right away, but it's probably just the little things that you have to notice. If a man is trying to take control, let's say if it's a man woman situation, if the man is really trying to take control and not letting you take the lead in little things, that might be a sign. You just really have to keep your eyes open for all of that. Um, and then later on, if you see a definite sign, that's when you have to leave. You can't stick around to continue to, well, maybe, no. I mean, as soon as somebody puts their hands on you, that's it.
So that's it. So as soon as somebody hits me, chokes me, okay? You're
That's it.
telling me there's no second chances. There's no I'm sorry. I love you. It won't happen again. I was stressed out, anxious. As soon as a person puts their hands on you, that is your time to plan how you're going to get out of this situation.
That's what I believe. That's what I believe. I
So,
mean, that doesn't
okay.
always happen like that. I mean, if somebody's willing to go to therapy and get counseling, and I mean, if people want to take that chance, that and it may work, then that's great. We don't really know.
Oh, oh,
But
you gave me chills because you just said if you want to take that chance with your life. You just gave me chills when you just said that. Well, if people want to take that chance, meaning you never know, like this person could end up killing you one day. It's maybe not planning it, but it's like a crime of passion,
right,
right? Where it just goes a little bit too far, and then all of a sudden the person is unconscious and just doesn't get up.
right. And we need to know people's backgrounds too. I mean, that's why on dates we want to know what's up, with your parents. What did they do? I mean, this is when you're getting to know where they came from, how they grew up. That might be a sign of how who they are. They may not tell you right away. Like I said, your representative is going to be there. They're not going to tell you they grew up in an abusive household and that they're an abuser. That they're not going to say that. So you really have to read between the lines and things like that. And if warning signs for people that for other people, like if you notice your friends have a black eye, or your friend is not going to work all of a sudden, or just little things like that. It's kind of see something, say something, check in on your friends, make sure they're okay. You never know what they could be going through. And again, they're not going to tell you right away because there's a lot of shame when it comes to abuse of any kind. So you have to be vigilant sometimes and talking to people and finding out, somebody's always going to the doctor, unexplained injuries, um, things like that could be, maybe not, but it could be a sign of domestic violence.
So, like speaking about unexplained injuries, like, if someone has like a bruise in their arm, and you know how you always make, like, I'm not saying me, but you know what I mean. People make up stories. Oh, I fell on a bike,
Mhm.
or I fell here, or sometimes people wear long sleeves in the
Yes.
summertime. And you're like, why are you
Yes.
wearing long sleeves for? Like,
Good
like
example.
let your instincts kick in. Like if it's like 90 degrees, if someone's wearing long sleeves,
Yes.
and they come up
Turtlenecks.
with a story. It's like you
Turtlenecks,
just
the high
try to,
choke marks.
yeah, or
Hmm.
wear or shades. Like they take the
Yes.
shades off, and you're like, hey, we're in the house. Why aren't you taking the
Right.
shades off?
There's no sun.
Why aren't you
Absolutely.
taking? There
Absolutely.
are signs, but you know what it is. Like sometimes people feel like it's like you're damn if you do, damn if you don't. Because sometimes they want you to mind your business. Like you don't know, because then you don't want the abuser not to like you. Because once the abuser doesn't like you, the abuser is going to isolate the person away
Right.
from you. Say, okay, this is going to be a problem. So
Right.
let me start during my love bombing period to
That's
try to
it.
get rid of that person who's telling my significant other, you got to leave the relationship.
Exactly. And isolation is another thing. If you see a friend who's just not coming out all of a sudden, they can't go out, they can't do this, you have to just maybe inquire about it. Doesn't mean they're in an abusive relationship, but just inquire, just ask. We care about each other. We should be checking in on each other. That's all, especially during this COVID. God forbid we're quarantine again. I need to know that people are okay.
Yeah, so check on your loved ones, check on your friends, check on your people.
Yeah.
Even shoot them a text because I know we're all busy and it's like to pick up the phone to sometimes I have a 1 hour, well, I have 2 hour conversations. So sometimes people avoid talking. Like, no, it's Danny, like,
Right.
just, you know,
Right.
hey, just I'm checking up on you. I do that a lot. Hey, I'm checking up on you. I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. Are you okay? You need me? You need me to call?
Right.
Check up on that person and be that person's support system. I always tell my people, I don't judge you. I'm just here for you. So whatever decision you make, I'm going to be here to support you. So I don't want to judge you to make you feel like now you can't talk to me.
Right.
Because sometimes you have to be careful with that. When if you know someone is being abused and you're trying to, sometimes it's baby steps to leave the
Right.
relationship because they feel like this person is, oh, this is a, they just feel like this won't happen again, and you get
Right.
frustrated with those type of friends or family members where you're like, because you remember you're outside looking in, they're in love with the person,
That's
you're
right.
not, so you
Right.
see very
They have on
clearly.
blinders. Right. And I'm glad you
Yeah, I
brought up
don't.
the texting part too, because like texting, checking in on people. Remember that people are, let's say a woman who's in an abusive relationship, who's in the house with a man, she may not be able to text or take calls because that abuser is standing over their shoulder, want to know who you're on the phone with, what did they do, what do they know. And so I was just talking to a friend about this earlier that if you are in an abusive relationship and you have a friend that knows, you should have some type of key phrase or word to let them know that you might be in imminent danger. What if somebody has a gun to your head? I need to be able to tell you without him knowing I'm telling you that I'm in trouble. So that's another thing that somebody that's in an abusive relationship should have a key word or phrase that a friend knows. If I say this, this means call the police.
Come get me,
Yeah.
911, right away. Because I
Yeah.
teach my kids have like a secret word, like God forbid something happens to them, because it's just like, what happened, in Buffalo, when the girl was calling 911 and she's like,
Yeah.
I can't
Right.
talk loud, and the person's
Exactly.
like, what do you mean you can't talk loud? I mean, I would think it's rocket science. It's like people need to understand, like if I'm in danger,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
can't yell and scream my name and tell you my address.
Right.
Understand my stress level if I'm saying I can't talk, because if I talk, the person's going to hear
Exactly.
me.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So people need to be very mindful of that. Of sometimes when someone is talking, like, hey, be like, are you okay? Like, don't start making the person have to talk louder. Just go with your
Right.
instincts.
Just
Like,
go
okay,
with
the
exactly. Exactly.
person is talking in such manner because maybe they're in danger and they can't yell out, hey, I'm in danger.
Exactly.
You
You
know,
got to figure
because
it out sometimes.
so everyone has to have code words. I think like every child, every parent needs to sit with their loved ones with anything, just have like a code word besides 911 or help that's gonna
Yeah,
make the person like
just in
like
case.
just in case. Say, you could say Piglet. And when I say Piglet,
Right.
my kids know, like, oh, it's Piglet. 911. Who
Right.
does? By the way, that's not their secret word, but I'm just giving an example because I don't want people to
I
be
hear
like
you.
Piglet to them
It
and
can't
be like,
hurt.
hey,
Why not?
Captain Piglet. But also, my mentor told me it's very important in the relationships that you meet the parents, you meet the family members, because that person might have like a disguise, like a mask on, but an abuser, you
Mm-hmm.
can tell the relationship. You could just sit back. You don't even have to ask questions. Just see the interaction and listen to other conversations in the room.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at him. He's acting like this, but we know how he really is. Like, when people start saying things like that, you really have to have your antenna up and be like, what does that mean? Like,
Yes.
this is not how he really is.
You need to know
People have
that.
to people have to start really, my mentor tells me, just like an employer verifies you referrals and asks questions and does a thorough background check. My
Yes.
mentor tells me now that's what you got to do when you start dating. This is not like you believe what the person says,
You
because
have to do
everyone
your
lies
due
in the interview.
diligence
Do
to
your due
research.
diligence. Do you
You
you know what,
do.
I wish I had a website that I could just look up an ex. Let me just see the complaints. Because when you meet the
That's
person, they're just
funny.
like,
Yeah.
they're so like, oh, perfect. Oh yeah, I've never hit nobody. I'm so perfect. And you believe it.
Yeah.
And then like what happens is the abuser says, but don't believe my exes.
Right. Well, everybody wants you to think they're perfect in the beginning. So you have to take the blinders off and just do your due diligence, like you said, because there may not be any warning signs. Somebody might really come off as great. So you just have to keep
Yeah.
digging. That's all until you're satisfied.
And listen to your instincts,
Yes, that's
right?
the other thing.
Your instincts is the most powerful weapon you can
Yes,
have with
your
anything in
intuition.
life. Your intuition will guide you to where you need to go. You could be blind and it will, if you get that little funny feeling, go with it. Even if it looks perfect, you're like, if you get that, even if it's for 1 second, go with the for 1 second.
Yeah,
Go with
believe it.
it, because you're gonna save yourself a lot of time, a
It's
lot of
true.
pain, a lot of hurt, just a lot of just when it comes to domestic violence. If the person's yelling at you for no reason, the person goes 0 to 100 for no
All the
reason.
little things, right?
The little tiny things, like if the person like nicks and picks, like the controlling thing, like I don't want you going out with your friends, I don't want you calling this person, I
Yes.
want you with me all the time, I want, just look at the signs, because a relationship should be healthy with balance.
Mm-hmm.
So Judy, anything else you want to talk about with domestic violence before we say bye to our
Yeah, I think
audience
we
today?
actually did cover everything now. The resources, Safe Horizon. Safe Horizons is a really great place for resources for people that are going through domestic violence, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. You can also, people can Google that number as well. But those are just two things I think people should have.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for everyone for coming on. I'm proud of you, sis. This is Miss Judy Foster. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and you can reach out to people like her if you are the abused, or even if you are the abuser. I am not here to judge any abuser. I feel like everyone should seek out help. So don't feel that if you are an abuser, and what we were talking about, you might feel like, oh my God, they're talking about me, right? Because I could be watching this show and be like, oh, I'm the abuser,
Right.
and maybe won't admit it to anyone else. But like I tell my daughters, therapy is a safe place where you can go and talk about your feelings and talk about what's going on without that being shared with anyone else. This is why I'm an advocate for therapy at an early age. Get your kids into the routine, because it's not like you're telling your friends, and sometimes you feel like your friend's gonna tell another friend, another friend, another friend, or your coworkers might find out and you might get fired from your job. You go to therapy, and a therapist is a medical professional that will, when you talk to them, they will start breaking down what is the issue and how you can come to a resolution so you can be in a much happier place than you are right now.
And your best
So
self in therapy. Everything is said in therapy is confidential unless you express harm to yourself or others. People should know that.
Yes. So I want to say, please seek out help. You can Google, there's so many organizations that help people that suffer from domestic violence. If you have children, there's lawyers who actually give their free time to help people in situations with domestic violence. Please go and Google. I do not want no one to stay in a situation that is very harmful to them and if they have children, because it doesn't really end well. Um, it doesn't really end well, or sometimes even you leaving could be
Right. Could
like
be fatal.
it could make you not be in a safe position. Definitely when you leave, get a restraining order, because 9 times out of 10 that person will be looking for you because you left.
That's right.
And restraining orders are not 100% protection, but it does alert the authorities that this person has harmed you before and has a possibility of doing it again. So when
Right.
you call 911 and they see a restraining order, the cops are more likely to go there as quick as possible, as opposed to them feeling like, oh, this is another domestic violence thing, and they
Mm-hmm.
stroll and take their time.
And it shows you mean
Um,
business, you know?
and,
So,
and it shows that you don't want to go back.
yes.
So I want to say, everyone, thank you for joining. I'm proud of you, sis, with Judy Foster, and I'm host Danni Benson. If you need any counseling, please, you can reach out to Judy. Judy, what are your handles?
Foster LCSW on Instagram. I think I'm J Foster LCSW. I forget.
Okay,
Um,
okay. And then
yeah,
can they
J
find you on
Foster
Google also?
LCSW on Instagram.
Can you just say that one more time for the audience can hear you?
J Foster LCSW on Instagram.
Yes, yes. And you're a licensed clinical
Social
social
worker,
worker.
psychotherapist. People can message me if they have any questions or concerns.
Okay, and then you take most insurances, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm proud of you, sis. Have a wonderful day. And if you know someone who does need help, please help them and get the help that they need, because sometimes you can't just stand there and not do nothing. You got to do something, because you might be saving one life, two life, three lives, four lives. I don't know how many lives you're saving, but also be mindful there's children in the household too. So you also want to protect those children too, because they might be getting abused also. So it's not only the spouse that might be getting abused, but sometimes the child might be getting abused too. So if the person says it's none of your business, if they have children, please consider at least saving the child's life, because it is everyone's business at the end of the day to protect people from being harmed.
Yep.
So thank you everyone for joining. I'm proud of you, sis.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day. Bye.